This gator is ironic because his name is Tiny. As you can see, clearly he's not. And he used to be alive. He used to be in our old alligator pit before we got it refurbished and redone. We had a hard time disconnecting from Tiny, and we just had to make sure we acknowledged our history, and we brought him up to the future now with us.
And here he is.
Exactly.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's great having both of you here today. Really appreciate your time. Popeye, I want to start with you. We are here on the lovely Miccosukee Indian Village on the Miccosukee Reservation. Talk a little bit about the significance of this land and why it is so important to you and your people.
We're only here because of this land. It protected us, it saved us during the war times. In fact, this village we're in right now, there's actually some very important meetings that were held here back in the day when we were trying to become a federally recognized tribe. And this village used to actually belong to a family, but once we became a tribe, they allowed the tribe to use it to make sure we could do outreach to people who weren't living in the Everglades, non-natives. So it's a pretty significant place we're at right now.
Talbert, let's talk about the history of the Miccosukees and the Seminoles. We hear so much about the Seminole Indians in the state of Florida. Talk a little bit about both of those tribes, the significance, and is there collaboration between the two tribes?
Well, the history goes back to pretty much the Seminole Wars, where we banded together with the Seminoles. Seminole is actually derived from a Spanish word, Cimarron, and it became Seminole to the Seminole people. So it's actually not an Indian word, but they lumped us all in as Seminoles during the Seminole Wars. And so when we came down here, they were recognized back in 58 or somewhere around there, in the 50s?
57.
57. And then we requested from the government that we wanted to be recognized as our own tribe because we had some cultural and political differences. When that happened, the two tribes pretty much split. We were recognized as a separate tribe. And right now, we share family and all that, so we have a really good relationship with the Seminole tribe now. Excellent communication and collaboration on different things too, especially the environment.
Which is so important. I know that's really been a focus for you, Popeye, lately, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But you're the youngest member of the Business Council. You were a teacher for a really long time. You're an artist. You've been really focused on the youth and education. Talk a little bit about the importance of working with the young people and teaching them your culture, but the juxtaposition of living in the modern world. How do you do that?
It's of the utmost importance that we focus on the young people because they're the only reason we're going to have a future. It's the legacy that we need them to carry on. And I know growing up, I remember my grandparents being very involved when I had questions. They helped give me a lot of guidance, and I see how I benefited from that guidance. So I had to make sure we passed it on to the next generation. That's the only reason we're here, because we have that in our tradition. Young people teach old people, and it's a whole lifelong endeavor. So you always have to stay connected throughout our whole life. We actually have a embassy fellowship program right now that we started recently. And that is so high school and college graduates in the tribe, we can train them a little bit more in depth on the tribe's history, how our government functions, how tribes have functioned with the American government. So that way they can speak upon the tribe's history, whether it's to the general public or to elected officials or whoever needs to know more about the tribe so we can get done what we need to get done. We're trying to make sure these young people realize they have a place and that they are of value.
Talk a little bit about the relationship between the Miccosukees and the Gators.
So from time to time, hard times, sometimes gators will be hunted, so that way there's sustenance for us. As they built the highway, when our people were hunting, they noticed, hey, these non-natives driving past, they're stopping to watch us hunt the gator. That's when we started doing alligator wrestling, which was adapted from traditional gator hunting techniques, but obviously so it could keep the gator alive now. And that's where this whole sport of alligator wrestling started, which is really more of a show, not so much a sport. But it gives us an opportunity to stay connected with nature and to teach others outside of here how nature is, because these guys are incredibly misunderstood. And it's also a reminder that no matter how much you think things are in control, nature is still able to one-up you.
As the Miccosukees have been in this area and in the Everglades, the modern world out there has continued to evolve. So talk about what some of the biggest challenges have been for the tribe and the rest of, say, South Florida, for example.
Well, a lot of it's encroachment and also water quality, right? And I think that's become a bigger issue now as more people have moved to Florida. They're beginning to recognize the importance of the Everglades. That's where they get their drinking water from and everything. So I think people are starting to hear our voice a little more on that. We've been raising the alarm for a long time, and it's good that people are starting to listen now, and we're ready to educate them as well.
We're putting more effort into outreach and educating government officials because there's a lot of important decisions that are about to be made. For example, the wilderness designation of Big Cypress, that's an issue that's ongoing. Wilderness, the way this country approaches it, basically says that, oh, this piece of land we want to designate as wilderness, no habitation by people, no impact by people, basically saying that there's no history of humanity there. And we've been living in Big Cypress for centuries. My grandmother, Peggy, she's almost 100 years old. She lives in a camp still. And to think like they want to disconnect her and us from that land and act like we haven't been present, like she was born out there, not in a hospital. It's important that we let people know what's really at stake, because a lot of people don't understand that. If we don't have Big Cypress accessible to us, that's where we hold our ceremonies. That's where we get medicine, that's where we get resources to build our homes, our traditional homes, our chickees and things like that. If the Everglades is not helped, if it's not cleaned up, those aquifers, they get polluted. Millions and millions of South Floridians are gonna be out of water. So that's like high level stuff we have to keep in mind. It's not just us we're trying to protect and benefit from, it's the outside population as well that we're looking out for in the end.
Talk about how important Miccosukee Day was to the tribe.
It's acknowledging our existence and our history, which is often undercutted in modern times. I mean, a lot of people don't even know that we're still around. So for the mayor to make this type of change, and especially the other county commissioners, it's nice because it's a culmination of a lot of the work our people have been doing, those who were here before us, and all the outreach and education. It's also a nice indicator that we're moving past mythology and starting to get into actual history. That's always the most important thing to us, acknowledge the actual history.
Let's talk a little bit about the misconceptions that you think the outside non-native world has with the Miccosukee tribe.
And the most common one, and that's why we have a village, is because they think we live in teepees. Or actually, you'd be surprised, because I've done a lot of traveling through the country and people are like, oh, what are you? I always try to describe myself as a human first, and people don't like that. So when I get to describing myself as Miccosukee, it's like, oh, you're native? And sometimes you'll be like, oh, we thought you were all dead.
What?
So it's to that level,
Wow.
yeah. And we have a different way of philosophy, the way we look at life. For example, we have gaming, but that's only so we can fund everything we're doing here as far as trying to protect the environment. It's actually in our Constitution. We have to conserve the land and resources for future generations. So that's what everything is going towards. And a lot of people think we're doing gaming just because we want money. It's like, no, we need that to keep doing the important stuff. That's just the means to an end.
You are an artist, Popeye.
Somewhat, yeah.
No, you are. I've seen your work. Talk a little bit about Miccosukee culture and some of the artistry that is on display that is really quite beautiful.
Well, I like to think in some ways art saved us, because that's what you really saw are people developing when they were left in peace here after the war times. That's when you saw stuff like patchwork being developed, palmetto dolls, beading and stuff like that came a little bit later through trading and whatnot. We teach that to our students at the school in the Miccosukee Language Arts Department, because we want to make sure they have that skill. Because like if you look at like the patchwork here, this was developed out here in the swamps, and it's informed by our existence out here in the Everglades.
Trent, we're here with your beautiful beading, this beautiful work that you do. What inspires you?
The creative freedom, to take something, put it in your own hands, make something out of it. And just the colors and everything, it kind of, get your mind going, like, what's the process? How am I going to go about this? And, you just see it in your head, and it just goes from there. This is a daisy chain, and this is what we learned back in like 2nd, 3rd grade, the simplest form you could do. But later on, I kind of added this to make it, a little more different, make it pop.
You were also mentioning that within clans, you cannot marry one another, even if you're not necessarily blood related. So when you're in a clan, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a blood relation, correct?
That's correct. It's more of a cultural connection, which is honestly more important in some ways than the blood part, because clans is what keeps our culture alive. If you have a clan, you're able to immerse yourself in the traditional ways. So if you want to do medicine, if you want to dance, you want to sing, you need to make sure that you're keeping this clan lineage alive. And we get those from our mother, so that also keeps that connection going.
We do know that the Miccosukees are a matriarchal society. Talbert, talk a little bit about that and the role of the female.
The women have a lot of power in our tribe. There's always going to be a head of clan, and that woman makes most of the decisions for the family and the decisions that affect the tribe as well. So, we always rely on the women's opinions on that and their decisions.
Yeah, actually, when I ran for this office, I did flip a coin, but before I flipped the coin, I checked with my grandma if I should even entertain this idea.
She was cool with it?
Yeah. She's always been a good advisor for me.
That's nice.
My mom told me not to, but I don't listen.
What is a really important message that you would like non-natives to know?
For us, the tribe, I think it's evident in everything that we've accomplished that the tribe always adapts. We're just going to keep on going, and we're always going to be here, and we always want to be good neighbors to the people in South Florida. So provide jobs, give back to the economy, and fight for the Everglades as well, for them, not just for us.
History tells us what we've done and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And American history is intrinsically tied in with Native history because so much has been an action or reaction to our existence. But when you prioritize American mythology over history, that basically leaves us completely out of the book. I mean, that's why we're doing this right now, so people can get a better understanding. I mean, you have people living in Miami-Dade or Collier County, Broward, all their life, but they don't know anything really about Seminole or Miccosukee other than, oh, they both have gaming. So to me, that speaks a lot on the work that we need to do, and not just us, but as a people. We need to acknowledge reality, get on the same page so we can move forward together.
For more about our South Florida community, like, subscribe, and click the video below.